Welcome to the Weather Farm. We have just experienced a historic amount of rainfall across the Ohio and Tennessee valleys over this past weekend. And last week we saw an extreme severe weather outbreak across those same regions. Let's break down what happened in our last week. As we see here from our rainfall map, we saw a widespread 5 to 10 inches of rain across most of the Ohio and Tennessee valleys, stretching from far eastern Oklahoma all the way back into Ohio. We also saw some isolated 10 to 15-inch rainfall amounts in western Kentucky, northwestern Tennessee, into northeastern Arkansas. We thought this could be a historic weather system, one that we hadn't seen as far of rainfall in the last 15 years, and it did pan out exactly as we thought it would. In terms of our severe weather, Wednesday was definitely the key point for the height of the severe weather last week. We were live streaming this Wednesday night as we watched several tornado warnings. At one time, we had as many as 26 active tornado warnings across the region, and we ended up seeing about 73 tornadoes, 548 wind reports, and 210 hail reports. Over 800 different severe weather reports just from Wednesday's storms alone. We didn't see much on Thursday, but we did think that there was going to be another risk on Friday, and that was going to be primarily concentrated around areas of Arkansas, Texas, and Louisiana. We didn't see quite the outbreak like we did on Wednesday. We thought that the atmosphere would be a little bit more capped, and those things did play out like we thought they would. 15 tornado reports. The main thing on Friday was the wind and hail, with about 72, 96 respectively, but still a severe weather outbreak. We are in the month of April. This is severe weather month as we go from April into May, especially along the south into the Tennessee Valley. So we will expect more of these types of systems in the coming week. However, this coming week, we are going to be more quiet, and we don't really see any severe weather in our outlook until we get to the middle of April. So as we begin our Monday forecast, we're seeing that heavy rain. It's moving off into the East Coast through the Carolinas, down through Georgia and the Panhandle of Florida. So we're going to see heavy rain in that area, not to the extent that we saw across the Ohio and Tennessee valleys, but we're going to see some significant rain. In fact, the Storm Prediction Center has gone ahead and issued a slight risk of severe weather from central South Carolina down through southeastern Georgia, including the city of Savannah, into the Panhandle of Florida. We don't expect a widespread outbreak, but an isolated tornado and strong winds and hail are expected for our Monday. In terms of our temperatures, we're going to see a cooler pattern across the Northeast into the Great Lakes. We're going to see a trough that is built in behind that system that brought all the heavy rain. Temperatures are going to be held down into the 30s and 40s across most of this area. Even down in the south, into Alabama, into Georgia, where we see that rainfall happening, where we see that cloud cover, temperatures are going to be held down into the low 50s. But out across the Central Plains, up into the Canadian provinces of Alberta, we're going to see temperatures surging up into the 60s. And that's just going to be the beginning of a warm-up. Even out in the desert southwest and Palm Springs out towards Phoenix, temperatures are going to be near 90 degrees for your Monday. And that's going to be one of the coolest days as we begin this upcoming work week. In terms of the precipitation that will fall with this system as it continues to move off of the coast, we could see widespread 1 to 2 inches across southeastern Virginia through the Carolinas. We could also see some isolated 2 to 3 inch amounts. Those will be less numerous than what we saw across the Ohio and Tennessee valleys, but still, this system will pack some punch in terms of its rainfall. The other big story that we're watching on this Monday is the freeze warnings that are in effect. We've had a combination of warm temperatures and wet conditions across the Central Plains through the Ohio and Tennessee valleys. That has allowed the growing season to start maybe a little bit earlier than normal. So if you've gone ahead and bought some of those plants and you've put them in pots and set them outside, this evening you do want to bring those inside as we expect widespread freezes, and a hard freeze at that, from central Texas all the way back through Ohio. Down across Georgia and eastern Alabama, we do have a flood watch in effect for those heavy amounts of rainfall today through Tuesday morning. And as we get to Tuesday morning, we're going to see that system completely making its way off of the coast. There could be some lingering showers across far southern Florida down towards the Keys. In the northeast, we're going to see an area of low pressure that develops on our Monday evening and moves to the east, bringing light snow to parts of Ontario and Quebec, into New York and the northern New England. And out west, we're going to see a system making its way onshore. Not an atmospheric river, not a lot of precipitation, but enough rain along the coast, maybe a quarter to a half inch of rain, and then some higher elevation snows of about 4 to 6 inches. In terms of our temperatures, again, we're going to see that trough digging across part of the United States, keeping temperatures below normal for this time of the year. Warmth continues to surge across the Central Plains. Kansas, we're now looking at temperatures in the upper 70s to lower 80s for your Tuesday. And out in the desert Southwest, you're warming into the mid 90s for your Tuesday. Along the Pacific Northwest, temperatures are being held down a little bit due to that disturbance that is moving on shore. Places like Portland, you're going to be in the upper 40s for your Tuesday. And as we put the whole week into motion, we see that system on our Monday moving offshore. It's going to continue to bring heavy amounts of rain. We see that snow system developing across parts of Ontario and Quebec, moving through northern New England. And out west, we see that disturbance moving onshore. But for the most part, this week of weather is going to be quiet, except as we get towards Wednesday, we're going to see a slight disturbance, some lake effect snows and rains moving through Iowa, Illinois, and in Indiana overnight Wednesday into Thursday morning. And that system's going to sit and spin for a little bit. So it's going to provide some cooler and unsettled weather for the Great Lakes and Ohio Valley. We see some rain moving along the coast as another low pressure system develops in Georgia on Friday. That will move up the East Coast for this weekend, bringing rain and snow to those higher elevations. In terms of our temperatures on our Wednesday, we're still going to continue to see that cooler weather. Where we see that snowfall happen from those lake effect snow bands through Illinois, Indiana, as that next trough kind of pivots through the Great Lakes, temperatures are going to be held down to near the freezing mark from near Minneapolis through Chicago all the way to Fort Wayne, Indiana. Temperatures continue to warm across the Central Plains and out in the desert Southwest. We're now approaching the upper 90s for our Wednesday highs. Even along the West Coast, Portland, where you were in the upper 40s on your Tuesday, you're now warming into the low 60s for your Wednesday. And this is all being driven by a jet stream, which is going to take on a different pattern. So we see that system and that energy moving offshore on our Tuesday. We see that trough beginning to dig through the Great Lakes into the northeast. So that's going to allow that colder weather to move in. And then we see more of a zonal flow across the western half of the United States. But even that ridge, as it begins to build across the west coast, it's going to buckle across the Central Plains and allow that colder air for our Wednesday and Thursday, which will provide that lake effect snow. And that cold air is going to be in place as we make our way into Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And even to an extent that we're going to see the possibility of a cutoff low. And that's what's going to allow that system just to sit and spin as another low develops across Georgia and makes its way up the East Coast for our Saturday. We see ridging building across the Central Plains, which means a warm weekend ahead for most of that area. Well, we thank you for joining us here at the Weather Farm for your Monday. We hope that you will like, subscribe, and share this video with your family and friends. Let them know where you get your weather content. If you experience severe flooding this weekend, what's going on in your area? Let us know down in the comments. We'd like to hear reports of what's going on across the United States. We hope you have a great day, and we will see you soon.